First of all, I want to thank LSI, Scott and team for the invitation to be here. Super delighted. For anyone that is visiting from outside Singapore, welcome to my adopted home here. I hope you're getting a chance to experience Singapore if you haven't been here before, getting out and about. Hopefully today I could provide some insight to the early startup, early innovators that we have in the audience. It's hard to believe, but 30 years ago, Intuitive Surgical was sitting where you're sitting in terms of early innovation and trying to figure out how robotic-assisted surgery would be adopted around the world. So I could provide some insights, and I'll give you a little bit of flavor of how our business has developed in Asia, and perhaps there's some insights there as well. Just to introduce myself, Glenn Vavoso, President of Asia Pacific for Intuitive. I am in my 20th year at Intuitive, and this picture is a way back picture of sometime in 2006, and I was getting to my first couple months to show off the Da Vinci S, which was second generation. So I've had a chance to support all of our platforms, even since the early Da Vinci system, and have watched the growth and the scale, and it's a pleasure to be with you today. You know, what gets us excited at Intuitive? You know, why do we get up and do what we do every day? And it's really about solving some of the most challenging healthcare problems that we have. And even for Intuitive, when we look at our product set and what we have been able to accomplish over the last 30 years, there is still dramatic room that can be made in outcomes, even for robotic-assisted surgical procedures. But let's look at 3 examples. And I think you can take dozens of these types of examples all across the body. But if you look at lung cancer, and how well is this diagnosed? From the time that it could be diagnosed with current technology to the time that it's actually diagnosed definitively is over 1 year. And we know how important that is in lung cancer. The earlier the diagnosis, the better the 5-year survivability. How about women with endometriosis? They're dealing with pain and symptoms for longer than 5 years before they get a definitive diagnosis of what's going on. And even the treatment pathway for endometriosis after that is uncertain and even longer. Then you have mitral valve repair, 7% mortality. If you look around the globe, there are about 1,000 mitral valve repair procedures every day. So that means for 70 people today, they will not make it the full year post their mitral valve repair. And so this is what motivates us. No matter what the past has brought, we look forward to trying to solve these larger problems. This is our vision. It's been with us for nearly 30 years now. I won't read it, but what we get after is, can we, with technology, identify disease sooner than it is under the current standards? And can it be treated definitively and early so that patients can get better to what matters most to them, their families and their everyday lives? This vision for us is powered and aligned with what our customers are feeling and thinking and what they're trying to execute on. You may have seen this before. It's the quintuple aim. It defines really for hospital and surgeon or physician operators, what are they trying to solve for? Of course, it starts with improved clinical outcomes. You have to have a product that is truly trying to change the current standard of care. And then can you enhance the patient experience? Can they recover more quickly? Can they be out of the hospital sooner? And can they avoid an unnecessary conversion in the case of minimally invasive surgery? How about for the care team experience? Every healthcare system is having challenges with staff, burnout. How can you make it a better experience for the care team and the surgeon? And of course, then lowering the total cost to treat for the patient episode that they're in. And then the fifth pillar of the quintuple aim is, how do you expand best technology access to the broadest base of patients? So we've been at it for 30 years. As I said, you can see affectionately we call it the Da Vinci standard, all the way to the left, through Da Vinci 5, which is recently launched in the United States and now Korea. But XI was a platform that really set the bar and the standard for multi-port robotic surgery. We now have Da Vinci single port, which is a new innovative way for surgeons to access the body, think about different approaches, and relatively early in its adoption, but we think this will be a game changer for many surgeries and patient conditions. We have the Ion platform, which is a catheter-based robotic platform that can do peripheral lung nodule diagnosis. Getting after that, can we be more successful at treating or diagnosing patients with lung cancer so they can get to that definitive treatment sooner? And then Da Vinci 5 coming to the market. Just some stats for these platforms. In the Da Vinci systems, multi-port and single port, 2.7 million patients treated just last year. Since the first commercialization of the product, 17 million patients now have been treated with Da Vinci technology. And while Ion is early in its market introduction, just last year, 95,000 people were successfully diagnosed with this platform, 180,000 since the platform was launched. So you can see there's quite an acceleration with that capability. There are now over 10,000 Da Vinci and Ion systems placed throughout the world. Here's a point I'd like to make, just when you think of perhaps how do you think about integrating with Intuitive, if there's an interest there in collaboration. I think of it in terms of the ecosystem that is around the Da Vinci and Ion platforms. For us at Intuitive, in partnership with our customers, it's become clear that it goes well beyond the platform now. To be successful, you have to have this ecosystem that, frankly, it's what the customers are requiring of us. But it's a great opportunity for early startups to where they want to integrate or collaborate with the Da Vinci ecosystem. It's advanced technology. These are vision systems, smart instrumentation, software. How do we think about data and insights informing the program? That has to be powered by a world-class professional education capability. And you got to be able to do that at scale. And then how does the hospital manage their program to optimize that program most efficiently and delivering the outcomes that are expected? And can you deliver on that promise? As you think about bringing your products to market, and I think the commercial infrastructure panel kind of got to this in that panel. It was a discussion about you need clinical validation. And it's great if you can get your product peer-reviewed and get that published. When we look at Da Vinci, I think it may be one of the most well-studied medical device technologies in history. There are 43,000 peer-reviewed journal articles that review the efficacy of robotic-assisted surgery. 4,000 just last year, and I'll say the majority of those 4,000 publications last year happened here in Asia. I want to take one of those publications, and it's a recent one. It was published in the Annals of Surgery at the end of last year, and just give you a sense first about the journey and how long it takes for the market, for hospital operators, for physicians to really evaluate the efficacy of the product. something you want to consider as you're thinking about introducing your technology. So this one publication was a meta-analysis that looked at the highest levels of evidence across that 43,000 publications, 230 publications, and it was a cohort set of nearly 4 million patients. 1.2 million patients in the robotic-assisted surgery cohort, another million patients who had undergone laparoscopic procedures, and 1.6 million patients who underwent open surgery. And the study looked at these outcomes you see on the right. It covered 12 years of data, 22 countries across these 7 cancer procedures: hysterectomy, prostatectomy, partial nephrectomy, right colectomy, lower anterior resection, and lobectomy. And these are the results. Now, most would say, hey, we get how robotics can help reduce open surgery. Well established. But even against laparoscopy, these were the results. Across 6 of those outcomes, against laparoscopy, lower conversions to open, a reduction in blood transfusions, lower complications, lower mortality readmissions. Only one was comparable to laparoscopy. That was 30-day reoperations. And one, robotic-assisted surgery, was longer in time by about 18 minutes compared to laparoscopy. So you think about your products and you go, okay, what will it take for me to identify and establish the clinical foundation? This is a representative example, at least for robotic-assisted surgery. The panel earlier this morning also talked about, especially in Asia, this is absolutely true if you're going to enter, most the Asia markets are socialized healthcare. And the government wants to know, okay, I get the clinical outcomes. Tell me, what is the economic value that you're going to bring to the healthcare system? And so if you take that data that I just showed you, and that study was called the COMPARE study. So I take that COMPARE study, and if I just look at 2023, there was about 2.2 million patients were treated with Da Vinci. And let's say, for example, that robotics did not exist for those patients and they had to have laparoscopy. Taking those probabilities from the COMPARE study and applying it to this, it would mean for those patients undergoing laparoscopic surgery, 134,000 of them would have had a conversion to open, which then starts a cascade of effect. 270,000, nearly 270,000 excess hospital days, where you're eating up resources, costing the healthcare system more because of those conversions, excess hospital days. And we would have even seen a readmission rate of 16,000 of those patients having to get readmitted to the hospital within that 30-day period. This is what can then transfer into the economic value either to the hospitals or the healthcare system at large. And I'll give you an example. This is a US setup, and it shows for the representative procedures along the bottom, where does a robotic-assisted surgery compare to laparoscopy or open surgery? Just last year, that robotic-assisted surgery line passed laparoscopy because the clinical and economic data was there to drive that conversion of surgery. Now, early days still in Asia, but we think Asia will be on a very similar trajectory. So let's talk about Intuitive in Asia Pacific specifically. And again, in the panel this morning, there was a lot of discussion about how do you go to market? What's your commercial capability? How do you think about doing that? And I think there are a number of different ways to commercialize and go to market. This was our journey. For the first 10 or 12 years or so of commercialization for Intuitive, for Da Vinci, in Asia, Intuitive did not represent our products directly. We were growing. It was the early days. How do you still start to go to market with your product, do it in a cost-effective way, knowing we had a focus in US and Europe? Asia was set up as a distribution region. So all of the countries throughout Asia were country-level distributors. So over time, it started in 2012, South Korea moved from a distribution to a direct organization. We understood at the time, Japan being the second largest medical device market, that we needed to be close to the customer. And in 2013, Japan became a direct organization, followed by India, Taiwan in 2018, and then in 2019, China into our joint venture, which, by the way, it's a different way to go to market. And we did that in China in 2016. We established a joint venture with Fosun Pharma, who's actually in the room with us today, who's been an outstanding, excellent partner for navigating China as a market for Intuitive Surgical. Been a great partnership. But that was in a distributor setup before, and then that moved into our joint venture. So today, the markets that we are representing our products directly today, you see in the dark blue here, and the rest of Asia is actually managed by a long-term partner who's also in the room, Device Technologies, who has been on this journey with us for over 20 years. They know as much about robotic surgery and Da Vinci as we do, and it's been a great partnership with them. So over 2 decades of growth now. These are the numbers of where we stand. 1,700 systems throughout Asia. Just last year, nearly 400,000 patients were treated with Da Vinci technology. For those that are working in different quadrants of the body, just to give you a sense of how procedures are being adopted in Asia, from head and neck all the way through pelvic surgery and gynecology and urology. You can see urology is the top predominant, but every other specialty is growing and inflecting, which is a little bit different than the way the US adopted, which was, I would say, more sequential. But with that data you saw, with publications like the COMPARE study, we're seeing simultaneous adoption across multiple specialties in Asia. Now, in an unpredictable environment, global environment that we're in, and this is especially true in Asia, that as you're coming to market, you have many stakeholders that you have to engage. In our case, surgical societies, regulators, government policymakers. Key aspects that you have to be ready for are clinical and economic data. As I said, many are in a model of socialized healthcare, reimbursed directly from the government. If you want your products fairly reimbursed, you need to do the work and work with those government stakeholders and even shape policy over time. And for us, I would describe where we're at as an industrial scale. Our customers expect that, as we are very much a part of their operation, that we can supply our products when they want them and that they're reliable 100% of the time. So we think deeply about our supply chain continuity as we go. How about the broader medtech ecosystem that you all represent and how we think about the opportunity? First of all, just in my discussions and conversations today, what you are all doing is outstanding. It's inspirational. And I encourage you to stay on that journey. And if there is areas that you think we could be better together, we should have a conversation. But how do we think about it? Is it aligned with our mission? Our vision and our mission and our focus on the quadruple aim. Is what you're doing in combination with us, could we really substantially affect the quintuple aim? Are we clearly better in combination? Should be a part of that evaluation. And of course, is there a path to healthy economics for us, for customers, and especially for healthcare across Asia? Where are our areas of focus? Because this is where we can align well in partnership. For us, it's the move into general surgery. Clearly happened in the last few years in the US. We will see this move happen. It's starting to happen throughout Asia. We've started 4 or 5 years ago a move into the lung cancer diagnosis because we looked at that and said the standard of care is unacceptable. That was the motivation behind the ION platform, and that will continue to grow as a platform. In Asia and Europe, it was growing beyond urology, and we've started to make that move, as I showed you in the adoption of those other specialties. And SP is a new platform for narrow access, single port, extraction surgery that will take us into other parts of the body that we may not be in today. As I said, we focus very carefully and sternly on the supply chain optimization, and we're thinking deeply about AI applications, machine learning capability in our robotic-assisted surgery platforms. Give you a sense of companies in the last 15 years that have become part of the Intuitive family. As you look at these sets, I think you can see these were particularly supportive of the ecosystem around the platforms that we have. And then our Intuitive Ventures is really focused on 3 areas: improving access and integration, precision diagnostics, and ultimately interventions, and then big data enablement. And how can we do that to inform programs and inform outcomes so that we can make improvement and do better than we are today? For us, it's always a balance between how much is organic or inorganic innovation, but we're always ready to sit down and have a conversation and listen to that. So with that, setting the stage, I'd like to invite Scott Pantel up, and let's have a conversation. Thank you.
Thank you, Glenn. So we are just, so everybody knows the format here, you can get your questions locked and loaded. We're going to have a chat for a couple minutes here, and then we'll open it up to Q&A.
Great.
To get it started, Intuitive has had quite a journey, and you have had quite a journey. And I think one of the things that a lot of people like to know a little bit is about the people that are behind the companies and the build outs. And so I have to read this because you had quite a background. So University of Buffalo, 7 years as a U.S. Navy nuclear submarine officer. We're going to come back to that. Duke MBA, 10 years at Boston Scientific, and as you just shared, 20 years at Intuitive, and now running the APAC division. So the high level question: how did you end up in medtech? How did you get here?
Yeah, it's a long, shaggy dog tail, but in many ways I got lucky. A friend of mine, actually from my Navy days, got into medtech, selling pacemakers and defibrillators. And while we call it Boston Scientific, it was really Guidant. If anybody knows the company Guidant, it was back in 1996, 97 timeframe, which was, an interesting story unto itself. I spent 10 years at Guidant, but a friend of mine had joined that company, and I was at an aerospace company coming out of the Navy, and he was convincing me that, hey, this medtech was the place to be. And at the time I was at that aerospace company, we were working on strategy where the company I was at was getting really excited about 2% and 3% year-on-year growth rates for the aerospace business. And I was looking at that, made the choice to jump into medtech, and have not looked back, and been a great journey.
Tell us because I know it's been an easy ride the entire way, right? We all look in and we see Intuitive and what they're doing. We know it's just a smooth journey along the way. And I say that obviously joking. We had a conversation about it at the table, and there are the good days, there are the rough days. Any defining moments along the way, or maybe you thought about leaving the industry, or defining moments where you said, I have to stay?
I think there are sort of many defining moments along the way. I'll almost never forget my first month coming to Intuitive, and it was in the U.S. field-based role as a sales manager. And somebody at the time told me, hey, we're at about 25% adoption of Da Vinci in prostatectomy. And they said, in 3 years, we're going to be at 75%. And I was like, no way. No, I can't go that fast. And sure enough, 3 years later, it was at 75%. And didn't have the experience that have ever gone through that kind of growth before. But when you go through that kind of scale, and we've done it a number of times now, it's not one sort of moment in time per se, but it's what you have to do in each of those scale moments. And for us, it was urology first, then it was gynecology, then it was general surgery. And each one of those adoption curves brought us into a new phase of scale. And while I think maybe an outsider's point of view might see, hey, what we're doing at Intuitive, it may look easy. I think sometimes where that duck on the water looks smooth, but underneath there's a ton of work activity that goes on for you to be ready for those scale increases. And I would say overall that has been a challenge, but it was also the opportunity for us.
Talk a little bit about how you basically became the APAC guy. Was there a big strategy put in place? Was it something that just was incremental, or how did you end up here?
Yeah, this is true about our DNA. We say this a lot. Small steps quickly. It's yes, you want to have the end in mind, but how are you going to get there is really small steps quickly, and try to be excellent at each one of those steps. So I wouldn't say there was this grand strategy for APAC at the time. And if I roll the clock back to 2013, I was doing a commercial operations role. As I think I said earlier, we were taking markets direct. Japan was the next market we were taking direct. We had a distributor in place. None of the employees were going to come over in that transfer. And so it was like, hey, we need help establishing a commercial presence in Japan. How do we build that? We understood how to do it well in Europe and US. How are you going to build this team kind of from scratch? So I started to get involved, just helping to build it, hire a new team, and subsequently did that with markets like India and Taiwan, and then got involved in China. And just sort of over time, and as we build it, then had an opportunity to run that business.
When you look at the business in terms of size and growth, how does the APAC business compare to, say, US and Europe? Growth, size?
If you look at those 10,000 systems that are out there, so lots of different measures of relative size. We have over 1,700 systems throughout our Asian markets, so that gives you a sense of relativeness compared to the 10,000 worldwide. Penetration or contribution to the organization from Asia is around 15%. But on a percent growth basis, it is the region that is growing the fastest, for sure. And for those that have worked in Asia for some time, half the world's population lives in Asia. It is where the future for Intuitive is, for sure.
Let's talk about those 10,000 units. In a conversation we had earlier, you've had maybe new colleagues join the organization, and hey, did I miss the run? Are we going to flatten out? How far can it go? Did they come in at the wrong time? Is it stalling out? Where's the growth?
Yeah, we were talking.
Is there growth?
We were talking this at lunch. I often as we hire new folks into the organization, one of the questions early in their career is, hey, did I miss the boat? Did the early days of Intuitive, the high growth? And I truly believe this, that our next 10 years will be way greater than the last 30. I mean, that's for sure. If you, and this is maybe the wrong crowd to do this kind of mental gymnastics on really back of the envelope math, but if you just said how much soft tissue surgery is performed, that is applicable to Da Vinci, and you put it on 7 billion population, and there's lots of decrediting factors. Healthcare access is not equal across all of that. But if you just said over the long haul, all of that sort of soft tissue surgery can gain value from robotic assisted surgery. You're talking a couple 100,000 Da Vinci platforms or robotic assisted surgery platforms that would need to be in the world to treat those patients that need surgery.
And speaking of growth, and on one of your last slides, and you touched on this, you talked about the balance between organic and inorganic, and you made an invitation to this audience of largely innovators and investors that are trying to build. You should expect a couple people pinging you after that invitation. But practically speaking, what does it mean to a group like this when Intuitive thinks about some of those growth opportunities? How should we be thinking here?
Yeah, we're not a company that thinks that, hey, the best ideas are within the four walls of Intuitive. We have lots of different sort of ears to the ground on what is going on. As I said, we're willing to sit down, have conversations where there is joint value that addresses the quintuple aim, that you're really trying to either double the things that we're doing or having the bad things that are still out there. That's where our interests lie. I think Gary said this in Southern California, is that when we acquire an organization, we have super high retention rate. 97% of those employees retain, and it's because they come into that mission and have the ability to fulfill their innovation dreams even within Intuitive Surgical. I think that's how you can think about that.
Yeah. And one of the other things that Gary and I talked about, which you and I had a chat about as well, is and it's important to us as an organization, I think as an industry, is attracting outside talent. And one of the ways that we can do that is by having great technology and innovation. So let's fast forward 3 to 5 years. We're at this meeting. What are some technologies that excite you that we might be talking about in 3 to 5 years, just broadly?
Well, I could say AI, right? I don't know how many organizations in the room are working on AI, but whether it's machine learning or AI capabilities in our space, thinking about just surgery for a moment, since the early days of surgery, it's been a disconnected environment. Very hard to get it the right data. And if you compared surgery to a manufacturing line, on the manufacturing line, all kinds of innovations. There are all kinds of KPIs that could be measured. You could do your TQM and say, hey, I got to fix this process. Yet to try to get that at surgery was really, really difficult. A robotic assisted surgery platform at the center of that allows you to collect that data, to assess that data in a way that could be fed back to the surgeon and the care teams in a real-time fashion, whether that's machine learning or AI technologies. So we think about that as this virtuous loop. You have data, but can you gain insight from that data? And then how, in a very real-time way, feed that back so you're that much better in the next procedure. Or a hospital operator, a program operator can gain insight how to be more efficient with their program in very real time. To me, that is a fulfillment of a lot of people's dreams of what this could be.
We're running short on time already, so we're gonna go to Q&A. And while I don't know if there's a mic out there, while we're getting the mic up, this is one I have to ask while they're queuing up. 7 years nuclear submarine. Any things you learned on the nuclear submarine that have transitioned over into medtech?
I would say, calm in the face of adversity.
Yeah.
And there's lots of things that can go haywire in a submarine. And when it does, you can't freak out. You have to just work the problem. And I would say that is true, especially in today's geopolitical environment. I think this was also said in one of the earlier panels. You have to keep your head about you and stick to your strategy. Be ready to pivot, but remain calm and committed to your mission, where you're headed.
All right, let's rapid fire.
Can you ever hear me? Yep. Hi, Glenn. My name is Omar Khatib. I'm the host of State of MedTech and also have a go-to-market agency. Changing surgeon behavior is very important. Something that was very interesting is that when it came to single port, Korea was the first to have approval for single port. And I believe to date, the single port utilization is almost equivalent to multi-port, which shows that the adoption was really good there. My question to you is, were there certain learnings that you saw that the Korean surgeons developed, whether it's like technique or certain ways they use a procedure that is influencing the rest of how you think of your strategy in Asia, right? And then how does that influence your business in China? Because China is your second largest market and also your fastest growing. So how do those things play into part when it comes to changing behavior and driving adoption?
Yeah, Korea, number one, and many of you may know this, but Korea surgeons are on the technology curve. They want to be out there, and multiport for us over the years has been well adopted in Korea. But interestingly enough, Korean surgeons are maybe some of the best laparoscopic surgeons there are in the world. And if you sit down with a Korean surgeon, you ask, hey, why are you so well adopted with multiport robotic surgery with Da Vinci? The first thing they would say is, I'm a great laparoscopic surgeon, by the way. That would be their opening line. I think in Korea, what they saw with single port is that for them, that was the big leap. That was the real improvement for them relative to what they were doing with laparoscopy. And they are very good at laparoscopy. So they saw this as, a one port surgery and capable of doing things that they just cannot do as a laparoscopic surgeon. I think that when we have SP launched in China, I think it'll be somewhat of a similar dynamic. Laparoscopy in China, pretty well adopted. There will be many that are, might still look at multi-port and go, hey, how is that going to improve my practice? How is it going to improve patient outcomes? But SP will give me something I cannot do as a laparoscopic surgeon.
We will, let's thank Glenn here for his time, and hope you guys enjoyed the session. I know I did, and have a great rest of your afternoon. Thank you, Glenn.
Thank you.